Welcome to another edition of Indiepocalypse Radio. Came as close as I ever have to really hitting the 4 o'clock, or not. I mean, usually I'm not starting at 4 o'clock, but like the perfect time dot. It just ticked over now, so I was about, I don't know, 10, 20 seconds early, but I'll nail it eventually. Oh, if I spent the time to make sure I hit my two little live announcements, then actually I probably would have nailed it perfectly. Oh well, who cares? I've been off this thing for 2 weeks, doing shows, doing events, going local, as you do, which I highly recommend. Local events, they're cool things, and
Yeah.
you get different vibes, vastly different vibes than the internet. I'm tired of the internet, tired of it. I I no longer wish to appeal to the online video game world. It is. Uh, we are mutually looking at each other and saying, "Hey, you're not. We're not in the same space." It's a very weird experience. But anyway, speaking of people who make video games, uh, we've got a collection here and more on the road, perhaps.
One more in the road, I
One
think.
more
Yeah.
on the road from Skyhour Works. Jeffrey Rukin is even Skyhour Works. Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I
I'm
I, I
having
just I just woke up and played video games. I didn't do anything
That's what I
else.
did too.
Yeah.
I did the same. I'm like sick, but other than that, I'm doing good.
Oh wait, I need to
I'm
look at. I need to look at
having
the.
a nice, lovely little Saturday.
Yeah, that's. I had to work on the Saturday. I don't work. I work for the weekend, as they say, not on the weekend. you, you won't. I mean, that's not true. When I woke up, I retweeted my announcement post, and then later tonight I will retweet it again, and then I might do the same thing on Sunday, and then I will repost it, uh, one final time on Monday, and then bon voyage to Indiepocalypse 47.
Number 47. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, just keeps on. I mean, you're all relatively close. You may know Skyworks besides from general work over the years in the context of this show from Indiepocalypse 45 with Howard Sora or Cross Sora, I believe.
Professor. I mean,
Yes.
so here's the thing about that. We used to pronounce it as how Xor. That's how
Yeah.
we always kind of said it. Um. Oh, hold on. It looks like Jennifer is ready. If you
Okay.
wanna, she can. Yeah, I'm just gonna tell her.
Just
Go
hop on
ahead
in.
and.
This is like an open. Imagine we're just hanging around the radio show, and look, somebody else walked into the station. They're stepping up to the microphone right now. But it is the Indiepocalypse open door policy is in full effect, or open as it will be. Open to people who I open it to, which is most people.
On
Most
Saturday.
people.
Yes, that is.
Yeah, if you wanna add us in, I don't update stuff on the stream because I know it only has three of our names right now. So
Yes. Where's
um
where I'm like there I am. I'm like what am I looking for? I forget which. This is a rarely used scene that has four people in it. So I do not. I had to find out where it was, what it was called. It's called Chat 32, of course. The most sensible naming for it. Uh, but where? But then what did I name these? Now, which guest is the missing guest? Oh, it's guest three,
Juniper, yeah. Guess three.
not guest four. It was guest three. But anyway,
Hello.
hello.
Uh
And the important thing is Juniper. Does Juniper do you have a picture? No rush on the picture. For now, you are
Oh,
going to
okay.
be uh,
you
a
know, just
blank
words, I guess.
space.
Let's see if I can find something.
A void with
A blank
name.
canvas.
Yes, a
You can
blank
be
canvas.
anything you want to be.
There is no rules for the pictures. I'm down here. That's not me. If you look if you're looking at the stream, that's not a picture of me or even an
I am
approximation of me.
I am aware.
What's a little picture?
I think it's from I don't remember where it's from, but it
That
looks
is
really
the
familiar.
Delicious in Dungeon.
Oh. Yeah, okay, that's why.
It's very I mean, it's almost if I had the right kind of wavy sort of hair, I would probably would I cut my hair like that? I probably could, maybe. Who knows?
Whom's to say?
But that feels like a style that I have to maintain, and I'm too lazy for that. I just I'm like, what if I just grew the top of my hair really long and just shaved the sides constantly? And I've been doing that for a very long time.
It's actually, yeah, it's really easy to do that.
Yeah.
I've had my brother cut my own hair, and we just watched a little like YouTube tutorial, and it came out exactly how I always like it.
Yeah.
And I saved myself $60 from a haircut.
Oh, mine is like 12 because I go to like a franchise style haircut place and I go shave the sides and the back to a 2, please. And then
I've always
yeah.
I had somebody who I was like really close friends with, and they started at a big brand store, and then they went in with another friend to create their own, and then they finally like rebranded and is now at a third location, and the prices kept like steadily going up.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll support them when there's like $30, and I'll throw in like a $20 tip because they're my friend and I really like it. But once it hit like $60 just to shave the sides and cut the top, I was like, yeah,
that's
I can't. I mean,
justify. I pay a lot for hairstyling myself.
Well,
yeah.
$75 every 3 months because I go every 3 months. No, 60. Sorry, I think it's 60. But I mean, I think honestly, with the way my hairstylist Molly does it, is always so good. Like I don't feel bad about the pricing at all. It's like ridiculously good because it's like very specialized. She remembers what I want. We usually talk a lot about what she wants. She's really good at her job. Like
that is their hairstylists are charging for a reason. It's a very important skill.
Yeah, it's something she's really good at. I have to also drive like really far down to go to it, and like it's worth it because there's like really nobody else that I think could do what I want as well as she could. At least, like,
that's the reason I've gone for such a low maintenance hairstyle. It comes in and out of style generally or occasionally, but it's like and it allows me to hair switch so that when I'm at work, I can just have it back, and I'm just like, hey, look at this normal working class guy. But if I go to shows, I can put it off to the side asymmetrically, and people are like, look at this little art, look at this little art kid. What's going on here?
So artsy fartsy, we love it.
Yeah.
With your massive hair.
But yeah.
But anyway, I say hairstyle like as if this is not what this show is. That's what if you're unfamiliar with the show, that's what this show is. It's mostly I've realized this year as I think more about what this show is. It's basically like, you know how people hang out after like a convention, like a game show, and just kind of hang out and chill, you know? It's like that, but other people can listen to it.
It's like a live action podcast, a conversation.
Yes.
I get the comparison point because it's like after a con's over, you're kind of out there with a group of people after you clean up your booths and everything, and you're just there with pizza for several hours. That kind of
right. Yeah, this is not you're not there. You're just like, hey, what's up?
This came 2 months late then, because I mean technically the closest we had to that was the game's release in early October.
Yeah.
So this is like the extremely late after party for that.
Oh, absolutely. But this is like the whatever Indiepocalypse. I believe video games are evergreen. You know.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Also,
they don't die.
I schedule super far in advance anyway, so it's I tried. Scheduling the show week to week was madness. It was like unsustainable. So I have to schedule a month in advance, or else I just can't keep up with it.
Yeah, that's like totally understandable. Gotta get your ducks in a row, as my dad would say.
Yes, and I'm the one duck herder, and I've got different kinds of ducks to herd. I've got people to commission, games ad developers. I've got issues to release. I've got stuff to print. I've got zines to make.
Is it Is
Yeah.
it pronounced zines or zines?
Zine, as in short for magazine.
Yes.
Makes sense.
They're like little baby magazines.
You realize this 2 years late, Ricky, because I actually asked the same question to somebody a while back, and then I was told, "Oh, it's a zine, not a zine."
I was in my happy little world.
I've got the most recent one in my hand right now, right next to me. I've got
Oh, tell us more.
it's a nice 8.5 by 11 full spread booklet of little ad pages that look cool.
We
And
love that.
I know these things are cool. I think they work at events. People are like, oh, what is this thing? These games look cool. I love the style. To get back on how sorry, the Skies Unbound has a very cool little page in there.
Oh, wait, we never
Oh.
got physical copies of the zine.
Oh
the
yeah,
zine
because
yet.
I never got any. I would need. What's it called? I never. I that was one of those things that like. So occasionally, let's be honest. I'm gonna be honest here. When things become, when they're not like the most essential thing in the world, sometimes they go off to the side. So like, oh, I need a bunch of addresses to send to. But this is the thing where you got me on the air and you've got me, publicly.
Yeah.
accountable.
Where is it?
Where is it?
Where is it?
Yeah, so just whenever next time, send me the addresses and I will print them up and send you them.
Yeah, sure.
I will
Can
send
do
out
that.
all the ones you need, whether that's to one address or multiple addresses.
I actually did not think about it being multiple addresses because I mostly wanted just a bunch of coffees locally, but also only me and Juniper are like local to each other. Like
Yeah.
everyone else is decidedly not local. Now that I think about it, is this a mostly East Coast team?
Yeah.
Would that be correct? I don't know if
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah. Mostly East Coast. Well, guess Izzy's closer to Central Time, but
I mean, I'm in the Eastern time zone now.
oh, you're in the Eastern Time Zone now. That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we are like a decidedly East Coast team. Yeah. So I guess it wouldn't be that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst thing about this thing, and the other reason why I put them off, is because these things are expensive to print.
Yeah,
I'd imagine.
Uh,
Oh yeah. No.
That's the other reason. I'm like, oh well, I'll just no need to pressure them for the addresses. They'll get to them when they get to them.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I've been busy too. It's
Yeah.
been I'm really glad we got Hellcross Solar out when we did because like pretty much after that everything just got really hectic for me and November was one hell of a month, so I had to do a lot of things for my day job, and then towards the end of October, early November, we actually showed the game at a convention, which also went pretty well.
Oh, where did you go? Because I'm also looking for events for next year.
So #Con in Herndon, Virginia. It's like a really local event. Like it was really close to where I was.
Yeah.
I brought Unbeatable, which is my day job there. Both me and Juniper, along with several of our friends, brought Hellcross Sora. And it went pretty well, I think. For the most part, it was a very low key event. I want to
Yeah, it
like
was.
extremely. It was.
I also just realized it's how Cross Sora and not how X Sora. So I've been
Oh my
saying it wrong.
That is, I think that is the American
So-
prerogative, whether you pronounce it X or whether you pronounce it
X
X or
cross.
cross.
So the thing about this the origin of the name is kind of obvious, which is supposed to be kind of like I don't know if referring to it as a ship is accurate, but like it is supposed to imply the romantic relationship between the two like characters.
Well, in
Hal
that
and
case,
Sora.
I think it is X. I think X would be the proper pronunciation.
So the reason why I did cross is because I had a friend do the voice narration for it, right? And like for him when I was talking to him about it, I asked him specifically to do it as cross because it sounded better.
Yes.
So that was the reason why it came out that way. I also thought like even though somebody says it as X and like kind of real life, like you can say that as X for like a ship kind of thing and it makes sense, but I actually disagree somewhat since the idea is supposed to be kind of like a crossing of two people.
Yeah.
Which is you know, you don't get that implication from saying X. This is a very semantics kind of level of like headassery, but that's just kind of where that came from. But yeah, hashtag con was pretty cool. I mean, a lot of people being local, especially a lot of the DMV scene, it's the first time a lot of people got to actually play um, an updated version of the game that had proper controller support. We had that like patch that released the weekend after the start of November. We actually previewed that patch there, so you know you could play the game with controller support. We had a functional event mode in the game that would crash it every other time it reset. So
But no, I honestly, you know, I mentioned up at the top of the show that I did 2 events recently, and you know, I did like a local IGDA show, which was, you know, in a college, and it was great though. Uh-oh. Can you all still hear me? Did my internet drop out? My little thing
to
seemed
really
like...
come up with a better solution to fully reset the game.
I don't know what it is built for, to be honest.
It's not really
Pretty
built
much
for anything.
All the documentation says don't use restart game.
Okay.
I mean, it is there to restart the game. It does exactly that. I think the problem is the way in which parts of the game are still stored in memory that kind of make it extremely unstable and unreliable. Like any game that uses that if let's say if a game on Steam uses that function, it's kind of bound for trouble, which is a bad admission to say. I think I used that in Space Mac Pilot when you hit the restart game function, but don't worry about it. So yeah,
I lost you for I lost connection for a second when I came
it's
back, and I heard game restart. I'm like, oh, they're talking about Game Maker. Thank you. I know what they're talking about.
yeah.
I'm welcome. I'm so glad to get back into. There was a moment where I was like, I'll switch to Godot because who knows how these engines are going. Then Game Maker's like, free for non-commercial use. We're going back. We're canceling subscriptions. I'm like, oh, thank you. It was the least convincing I ever needed to go back to Game Maker.
It's good. I'm
I'll-
glad we still use Game Maker, honestly, despite what some people on the team feel about it, because like you know there are some really annoying parts about working with it, but
Yeah.
like I've always felt personally really comfortable working with the engine.
It's
So
just the thing I know, and I think that's the engine secret is like find the engine you know, and then that's actually the best engine is with the one you know how to use.
yeah, and the fact that it is completely free for the most part for at least for non-commercial. I mean,
Right,
obviously,
but you know
we are not commercial, but I mean, because I bought it for like that kind of fixed price, like at least 3 to 4 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
It is incredibly commercial. Like I can still use it for commercial projects now.
Right,
which is
right,
like-
and that's the benefit is that anyone can use it for a non-commercial, and then he's like, oh, well, we'll use it for commercial. It's like what it takes one license, you know, and those licenses
it's
are
one
not that
license.
expensive.
It's $99. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like not terrible.
Right, and it's not like a per chair or like, you know,
It's not a per chair thing. Oh god, it's not a per chair thing. I really hate Unity.
it's not. There's no revenue cuts or anything.
Yep, stuff like that. I don't even know how that shit works in terms of like invoicing because like
Yeah, no.
I've never released a project, at least yet, that has had to deal with anything like that. So Game Maker just kind of keeps it simple. You know,
Right, yeah, they just- and
we purchase the software, we make the game. That's the end of it. So I'm really happy about that.
It seems like a perfect, you know, understanding of like we actually don't need to be like there is space for like hobby grade engines, you know, that have like a commercial application. You don't have to worry
Yeah.
about like these things definitely need to be like because I don't think
We need to support war crimes. Is what
Right,
is what-
right, yes.
At least where Unity stands on this side of the equation.
right
is-
Unity like we need to bankrupt a few companies along the way too as well. Don't forget that. Don't settle just for war crimes when you can. Just purchase up perfectly functional companies and then shutter them, which is a whole. That's my goal for year 4 is to get purchased up and then shuttered one day.
It's the goal everybody hopes for, right?
Yeah, because I've said on the show before that you can't stop being bought. It's just a thing that happens to you. It's not like you can just say no. If somebody wants to buy you, you have to let them buy you. There's no.
Yeah, you don't want to regret that decision later, right?
No, of course not. That's it's the thing
I
that's
hate
always.
making video games.
It's the weird thing that's always the framing I've always seen is like they got bought. It's like no, they sold their company. Nobody gets bought. It's not a thing. You don't get bought. You choose to sell. Unless there's like shareholders or something, and it's like a board decision. But
It's like a
generally,
board takeover. But like there's usually people at the top that can decide whatever or not they can allow that or not, like
yeah,
if they want that. And most of the time they don't usually, so
right.
like
That's the it's I think it's a poor framing sometimes that like you have to remember that it's like every time your favorite little thing gets bought, the person at the top of your favorite little thing decided to sell the company. It's not.
yeah, pretty much.
I mean, maybe the company wouldn't survive without that being sold, or maybe they're just taking a paycheck and cashing out and saying thank you, I'll be on my way. But what is this? We keep circling around to other things. So small little convention. I do, like I said, I do highly recommend people check those out. Like even like
There's a lot of them around
Yeah.
places. Yeah.
It's especially if you expand the scope to like just general like art shows, or like zine fests, then you definitely have one nearby. You can bring video games to like craft fairs probably.
I think
Probably
Small
could.
Press Expo is a popular one nearby.
Yes.
Maybe do that.
I've thought about sneaking video games somehow into Mice, which is like my local like indie comic show. But like
I mean, you could. I don't see what's stopping you there. I mean, like, I've been playing games lately that I feel like you could put in a show like that, and it wouldn't particularly like look jarring, so to speak.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So.
I wonder because I also feel more like personally in my very narrow sort of field feel more aligned with like like SPX and stuff than like PAX and GDC.
Mm-hmm.
Or even like Indiecade or those kinds of things, which still feel very corporate focused.
Well, Indiecade's kind of strange because it's more of like a traveling. It's like imagine a part of a con that is
Yeah.
just Indiecade, but that's just because Indiecade is like an initiative that just kind of travels around everywhere. They're like kind of like the publishers for indies when it comes to going into a con, which is kind of strange. Like they're like a specific showcase group that appear as like a single body for a bigger corporate con, which
Yeah.
it's a good initiative and there's really good people behind it. It's very different from that kind of like very specific style of bringing like you're kind of some like I think the work we're doing is a bit more comparable to like going to like Comic Con in Japan, which is
Yeah.
like it's work by dedicated fans made for dedicated fans, right? Like our target audience isn't other people really who like just kind of consume media, kind of consume art, right? It's people who make media. It's people who make art. It's a lot of the people, same people as us, who also want to show their works, and then by proxy of being in the same space, also end up seeing and consuming other works.
Yeah.
Right?
And
That's the kind of thing.
and I think at places like SPX, like that culture is kind of very similar in vein. Like that's the closest like stateside you'll get to like your Comic Cat style thing is like, I think unsurprisingly indie comic shows.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's not one that's more general that where you generally expect to see games at, as you would as like a Comic Cat. But we are definitely similar. You're right. It's very similar. Like you have this sort of like almost like the circle vibe.
Yeah, so actually, this is something I'd love to tap into.
Yes.
I always see Sky Arrow works as kind of the thing that it's closest to is like a Dojin circle.
Yeah.
Because it is just a group of hobbyists that make stuff, and we put it out there, obviously for commercial stuff, like commercial selling, but like the act of making it is mostly out of a desire of like doing like a hobbyist like kind of
Yeah.
group thing. It's about like making very specific things and like yeah, like and just embracing that part of it. So I mean, like, cause like I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really make a lot of money from these games, and
Right.
neither does everyone else on this team. And the money that I have made usually goes to other people or doesn't go it usually goes to other people or goes just directly back into paying the Steam fee for the next game or something like that.
Right. I am. Uh, you are preaching to someone who's about to make their uh, how much money I need to make, how much my post about my pledge drive, which is how much money I need to make to to make my first cent of profit off of Indiepocalypse. It's the indie space is not very profitable.
It's like the way I see it, there's a side of indie that's profitable, but
Right.
it also you go to that side and you try making games to that side, and it's not that it's specifically just a luck theme, but you kind of have to be very you have to see things in a specific way you don't see when you just make shit. When you just make shit, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't really have like I don't like especially because I guess I've been thinking about it this way. Like how Crossora is actually probably one of the more if we were to put it on Steam, which we are kind of planning on that, right? If we design it a certain way, like went in a certain direction with it, it would be an extremely marketable quote unquote indie game
Yeah.
because of the kind of game it is. You know, it's an action roguelike game. It's got kind of very similar mechanics to stuff people like. As a kind of presentation that I think a lot of people really like as well. A lot of people really like would buy the game for because at least the way I see it, a lot of people buy games based off of how they look.
Yeah.
Um, so I like it is considered one of the more marketable games that we've done, but we didn't release it in a marketable format. We didn't design it in mind of a market. I feel like apart from just we had some cool ideas for a project I never finished like 4 years ago. And hey, we're just gonna finish it because why the fuck not?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I will say we kind of figured a lot of things out along the way. When I was kind of programming your initial concept and design, I just kind
Yeah.
of took it in a certain direction unintentionally, and that was fun to figure out.
I
But
think it worked out for the better because like the original concept was incredibly in that direction of that like quote unquote the marketable
Mhm.
game. You know, it had everything that you could want. It had mechanics. It had like I think there's even like a pitch for like raid content in it, which kind of makes no sense in theory. I can explain it to you, and it can
Yes.
make sense in that context. But it had like a lot of themes that I think if you released that in the kind of same space as Hades, it wouldn't look like particularly out of place there, which I don't think is like probably a good example of what the current iteration of this game is like. But especially when a lot of the keys I wanted to take from the project were from a very, I would say not as very like a lot more eccentric stuff. The original concept kind of falls apart when you try stitching it all together, and Juniper like kind of like stripping back certain elements, but also increasing the emphasis on others, made How Sora a way more interesting game. So
oh, I appreciate that. I will
yeah, I
say,
mean it's fun to work on it with you. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. So
I
for
was
for people
sorry.
listening right now who are unfamiliar with what How Cross Sora is like at the base, how would you describe How Cross Sora?
Hmm. What is How
Good.
Yeah.
I have my own answer for this, but I actually want to hear Juniper's like
Okay. Yeah, no, I can give it a shot. To
Yeah.
me, very Sonic Riders inspired in terms of aesthetic. I think that was my main inspiration for some of the key art, not key art, but the sprites and everything. And in terms of elements, I kind of just incorporated different mechanics I liked to see in games. So customization, like board customization. Um, Everyone kind of digs on me for adding gotcha elements, but it's a fake gotcha. You get
Right.
plenty of points to spend on it, and I just like the kind of cute vibe that brings. And yeah, just kind of like a responsive game feel is what I really wanted to do. Something that was kind of fast paced, twitchy, in terms of the platforming. So
Yeah.
I guess a roguelite platformer with customization upgrades.
How Sora to me is an ode to all the dead online games I liked when I was like 15. So
Okay. That
It was so so
yes.
Sonic Riders is one of those games. It was definitely a key influence. The way I see it was Sonic Runners was actually kind of like the big base, and I had Juniper play like a private server version of the game, or at least like take a look at it, as an example. So,
I
but
did
Sonic
consider that. Yeah.
yeah, so Sonic Runners was online free to play mobile endless runner game, right? That was actually developed by Sonic Team. So this wasn't done by like Sega's other like mobile studios or some shit. This was a core Sonic Team project that they spent like 2 years focusing on. They didn't release any other mainline games. This was what they were making. It actually did have gacha, ironically enough. But I didn't like that aspect of the game, so it wasn't in the initial sheets until Juniper just kind of added it back somewhat. In a way better fashion, might I
Yeah.
add, because runners
Like, well,
runners
I mean,
iteration of gacha was terrible. But
the
the other
real
game was
the real vicious
yeah,
thing of gacha is paying money for it.
yeah, the other game that I also took cues from was Let It Die, and that's
Yeah.
where the origin of being able to change boards came from. Because in Let It Die, you have characters, and you basically build a bunch of different characters. Since when you make a character, like they're at like a certain level cap, and once they've reached that level cap, they can't really be like they can't grow anymore. So you have to take that character, level up the equipment that they have, like build the equipment they have, get farther so you can make better characters. And then you can do a lot of weird things with these other characters. I don't think we had time to expand on this concept enough, but that was the main holdover in terms of like the customization stuff that I think tied in really well with what Juniper wanted out of that system. But that was at least how I saw that. Let It Die is apparently still online, and I
That's
think
what
just got a 7-year update.
That's
I
what
don't know how that happened.
I'm looking at the exact same thing. I kind of like Let It Die.
Let It Die is good.
It's kind of cool. There's
It's
some,
a cool game. It's a cool, weird game. It's a
Yeah.
game that shouldn't work, and it mostly doesn't, to be
Well,
honest with
yeah.
you. It also is a game that, um, yes, it's a game that doesn't really work. It's a game that, because of its existence of microtransactions, actually tanks a lot of its process.
right.
But the vibe is like incredibly strange, because it's a grasshopper game. It's a game with very
Oh my
weird
god.
mechanics, very weird stylings and stuff. Actually, Rookie probably knows a bit about this game because I did leak songs from this game's soundtrack as a ref point.
You
The
did.
weird ass soundtrack for this game, which is over 100 tracks, commissioned and directed by Akira Yamaoka, the composer of the Silent Hill series. And they got 100 J-pop, J-metal, J-rock, J-screamo bands to basically all do songs, and each of them have the name Let It Die. Like, all the songs are named Let It Die.
It's so
Uh,
good too. Like
They're good. They're bangers.
that OST like introduced me to Wakase Abnormal, which is like one of my favorite bands ever.
The Wakase Abnormal
good.
song is really good.
It's
Yeah.
really good.
It's
I
also
haven't
kind of.
played that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. This is totally off topic ish, but the publisher is Gung Ho Online, which is the same people who have the app game Puzzles and Dragons.
Oh,
Yeah. It
It's
is.
not
It
on-
is. They also are the funniest thing is that in terms of their like releases on Steam, like the game that they did published after was Grandia, like the HD remasters for the Grandia games, because
That
I
is-
guess they just owned the IP for Grandia now, which is very weird.
That is
Um,
very
is
that is
weird.
very weird. I am now. I'm thinking occasionally. What if who made that Game Arts? I got that Star Ocean thing today, or bought it. Like, what if I start getting into old RPGs?
Oh, the second story remake.
Yeah. Which is I don't. Anyway, that's a sidetrack that I'm thinking about role playing games.
Well, so in terms of Game Arts, they
Yeah.
did Grandia, and I think they did Suikoden as well. That, correct me if I'm wrong. I think those are the only games I've associated them with.
Oh, they did
nowadays.
Lunar too, or Lunar as well.
Oh, they did Lunar. They also did Smash Brothers Brawl. That's actually a very specific one, but that's like kind
Yes.
of they worked on that game. They were like the actual developer of the game, so to speak. While Sakurai's team was mostly on the design side.
There was somewhere else. There was someone else who did a similar thing that I thought was very odd. They worked. Was it a Smash Brothers game or? Who I was looking at that also developed like a Nintendo game that I was blanking on.
You might be thinking of Alpha Dream, but that might be incorrect since Alpha Dream is like, I'm not too sure.
I mean, Bandai Namco made the new Smash iteration.
made a
I think
new
Sakurai
Smash.
is splitting out into a new studio
Right.
with that team, which is always interesting to
I'll
me.
never think of it because there's no way, there's no possible way I can think of it. No, I think I think they worked on Octopath.
The Octopath team.
Was it Acquire? Anyway, there's some maybe it was Octopath because I was looking up Tenku, and I'm like, Acquire made Octopath. Anyway, we can't sit around looking at this stuff, looking at Wikipedia forever, looking at which Japanese companies worked on games.
I mean, it'd be interesting. I don't know if that's hugely relevant to our projects. Exactly.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
But but the combination of your descriptions of as someone who didn't know what Sonic Runners is, if you told me this was like your early aughts, like the game you would find on Sega.com for, their tie-in for Sonic Ride, this would be what my child brain remembered it as, if that makes sense to you.
I get what you mean. The thing about Sonic Runners is like it's such a very specific it's such a very specific kind of game and made for a very specific market. Like I think this is around the time Cookie Run was like a thing too, which is also another game we were looking at when it came to references for this project. But like that was also similarly really popular around the same time. It has very similar systems and mechanics. I just think Sonic Runners plays better.
Yeah,
like the game feel with that, the responsive game feel that Juniper mentioned, like that part of it was so good. And the thing that really kept me going back to that game, even though a lot of things around it weren't particularly great, like once you reach to a certain point in Sonic Runners, things just get like unfairly hard and stupid. And some of the best ways to circumvent that is before you get to that point, you have the right gacha items and the right gacha characters equipped to be able to get more points faster or survive longer or something like that. But it's not like amazing, no. But it's just the feeling of it, the way everything comes together. Like it's just so much fun, and I wanted How Crossover to recapture that, as well as like kind of like the ulterior goal with the original version of the project, which we kind of illuminate a bit in the final game, was for it to kind of paint more of a light into the world of Natura, because that's like the world that all of our games take place in.
Yeah.
And the location and the dialogue, I wrote it as Kiva City, or actually no, it was Luna's Lead. So it's one of the 3 cities in the game, and it's never been featured in any game before. So that's neat because I mean we didn't really get to do stuff like that in a lot of the other games. Kuma City from A Nightmare's Trip is just images of Taiwan and Japan, and loosely written as if those 2 cities, like Tokyo and Taiwan, combined together. But it's a really strange concept and something that I think in future games will be reinterpreted very differently. Like, there's a project I want to do that's actually also set in Kumo City, and it's going to look visually very different, I think, from how it looked in A Nightmare's Trip, since we'd actually be drawing environments for it somewhat.
Right, and also because you can change the things all you want. Your own little, they're like interpretations of like these spaces, I guess, as you're kind of like figuring them out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a strict, a strict Bible approach. It's kind of I'm kind of discovering this world as I make it, and I not being me, of course, but I being you, all the creator. But that more loose approach, and I think, I mean, I feel like the shared world also is a very circle vibe sort of thing.
It is a part of that, like, the Dojin Circle vibe. Like it's the only really connected tissue between our projects, because I think a thing we really want to do is make every game stand out.
Right.
Which means that if I have a game that is directly set after the events of another, right, and like people have to play that previous game to enjoy it fully, I think it's not what I want to do. It's also not what I want to make, because I don't want to make another game with the same systems and mechanics, right? At least I try not to, because like I know we've talked about doing sequels to two of our previous games, which was A Nightmare Trip and Space Mac Pilot, and like both of the concepts for those quote unquote sequels and what they would be are very different kind of experiences. Like I'd argue A Nightmare's Trip as a sequel, like if we did a sequel, would be it'd be comparable to playing a single player Mario Party campaign.
Okay.
And Space Mech Pilot 2 would feel a lot more like an actually full on like action JRPG in terms of like the type of build and systems in place. It's still like an idle game. And I think of the two games would play the most similar to the original like version, but like it would feel very different, I think, in terms of like the general vibe and structure. Like people would actually be engaging with the gameplay mechanics more seriously in a way that's very different from that original concept. But then we also are making new stuff. We're making games that are set in very different genres, with different characters, different stories, right? A lot of stuff like that. So I think we have 3 games that are kind of in cooking, with only one of them actually like being the next one we'll focus on. Like these other 3 are like kind of like we're making them, when we get the time. Uh so
Especially that one game.
that one game that we need to finish. So everybody but Izzy right now is working on that game slowly. We currently are on pause because some staff on that project need to take a medical leave, so we haven't been able to continue work. But that game is Read to See Voice. So it's an adventure ARG game. Feels like a really good for fit for Indiepocalypse in a way. And actually, it's a funny note, because I actually am totally unsure if the game will release on Steam.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the game's existence and its puzzle design, there might be things that block it, and if they block it, there's not really a way to fix it without fundamentally redesigning the game. So there's a non-zero chance I need to find a different format for the game in the event that happens, which would
Right.
suck, because it's kind of the game we've put the most effort into, the most amount of years into. Like
hmm
Ricky's finished over 50% of that game's soundtrack, and it is like astronomically big.
and I'm still like, I want to go back and redo them all,
Redo.
because I'm like I've progressed like so much as a composer and arranger for Sky Hour that I'm like, I don't know if this is like still me.
Yeah, and the game, I feel like the game's environments are like all done. Like there's a lot of aspects of it that are kind of complete but not complete and still need to be figured out. But I don't know if we had a chance to get back to that once everyone's back in full health. Like we'll probably finish the game relatively quickly, because a lot of it is together fundamentally. And I'm really excited for that to come out finally, because at this point I want the opportunity to make other cool games, and I'm feeling really confident in the people I get to work with and
Right.
myself as a creator to make more things that we're doing. Because like traditionally we've always avoided action games, and the reason is I don't really know how to nail good game feel. But um, I'm in this call with Juniper and Izzy, who are really good at that in a way that I'm not. So like if we were to handle an action game, it's more than possible. So, there. That's how I feel about that.
Shot.
Yeah. And then there's another game I want to do that I think people would absolutely love when we get to making it, because it's really unique. And I can't talk too much about it yet. And then both me and Juniper wanted to make a separate project together that we also haven't talked about publicly, that has some cool ideas. It is a lot of things that we've been thinking about, but when we are all hobbyists and we don't commit time to this, it
Right.
takes a while. So like
Yeah, and
I don't know when any of these things will get done. Like Regency Voice is probably the closest thing I'll get done. I know Vivid Stasis is probably gonna wrap at some point in like 2025 or 26. I don't know exactly when. I mean, it's technically out, but there's more episodes, right? And then there is another project that we're actually assisting in development. It's like a publishing, like kind of similar endeavor, and it features characters that people who play Sky Artworks games are familiar with, but that is in early development, and I don't think will be shown anytime soon. At least I'm not actively working on that side of it at the moment. It's being handled by my partner who co-directed A Nightmare Strip with me. So there's like another half of like the kind of like Sky Hour Works alumni that are working on that project separately from everything. Literally everyone else in this call doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I
Nope.
can't say anything. Yes, that's how secret it is. It's like
Yeah.
it's a pretty secret project because it's a different team and different people. But yeah,
This is my first time hearing about this secret project.
yes.
Same here.
It's a good job then because it's a secret project. It's not a
It's
let's
a
tell everybody
extremely
about a
secret
project.
It's it's a project that I don't think is overtly secret because it's actually
Yeah,
public
right.
info. But like, it's not something that I'm supposed to publicly talk about yet. So no.
Yeah, that's the weird because I'm like I just like to talk about things. I'm like a very I don't know.
You don't care about you don't care about the secrecy of things. Like
No.
fuck it kind of
nor
thing.
nor do I have like marketing strategies. I'm just like I like talking about things. I was like I hesitated to make sure I didn't talk about do I not talk about the thing that I'm working on? Who knows? The only thing I do is like I like to give each issue its full month, but that's not really like secrecy so much as it is like seeding space,
Mm.
But that is like no, it's like, and it's weird because I wonder what it would be like what the development approach would be if the U.S. or like I guess more specifically like the East Coast of the U.S. had like a routine Comiket style event. Would it be more like, oh, okay, we'll finish more little games because we know we'll have this ready for
I mean,
month's-
partly why I associate Skywarworks as being in Dojin circles. I feel like a lot of our releases are built for events like that. So like,
right.
because uh when we did Space Mech Pilot, it was intended to launch during the Steam Next Fest, the very second one they ever did. Actually, I'm pretty sure the
Yeah.
second Steam Next Fest that was ever done, the autumn edition in 2020. And what happened was we were not allowed to actually just release the game in full, so we had to release a demo that was actually the full game. But then there's the full version with a post game.
I remember this. I remember.
Yes, I remember.
this.
So
that
arbitrary.
It was
Why?
very arbitrary, but like it was because of the nature of the, like because I wanted the game to be playable on the day
Yeah.
it's out. Yeah, and
What?
but it's not what it. It's not what they. That's not the way Next Fest works. It is exclusively demos. It's for demos for imminently releasing games. So usually games releasing within this next 6 months, right?
Why is the game industry so obsessed with the preview cycle? What is their obsession with it?
Because it's like the marketing cycle. It's
Yeah.
like obviously you don't. There's games that release sometimes on the day and date, and there's games that get announced that don't get done for like 6 fucking years. You
Yeah.
know, like, but
Like Dead Island 2.
well, that's his own story. I think the better comparison would be like The Elder Scrolls 6 or
Oh, yeah.
Fallout 5, which are both games we know exist, and they publicly announced, but are games that they haven't even started really working on because they're busy with Starfield, and then after that it'll be Elder Scrolls 6, and after that it will be Fallout 5, right? Like.
But I heard Starfield's a dead game now.
I mean, Starfield's a single player game that you can finish. That seems
Wait, are you
very-
I log
It's-
after I finish my single player games. I make sure to log on for about 30 minutes every day, even when I finish them, just to make sure they stay alive.
Yeah,
Which is
it
like-
doesn't affect players at the end of the day.
Yeah,
it's
no,
like
it's
silly-
all-
it's a silly. The
It's-
player numbers for Starfield are so low, and it's like well, sure, I guess that doesn't really mean anything to me. Like
It's all very silly.
all very silly stuff. Especially doesn't mean anything to me because I don't work at Bethesda.
Right.
I mean, I could. They aren't far from us. I wouldn't want to do that since I hear horror stories about working there. But I mean,
No, it's all a very like obsession with like metrics and this kind of like, oh, things are successful if a lot of people like the number, got to keep the numbers up. Everyone's got to have good numbers. It's got to
successful is they get to make another game, which they
Yes.
almost definitely will be since they already announced Elder Scrolls 6, and that seems to be going like pretty smoothly. And they have several live service games that are doing well for themselves, so like, well, specifically Fallout 76. I don't think any of the Bethesda live service game is still operating right
I'm
now.
still surprised Fallout 76 is still around. It seems,
It's extremely around. They've been doing
yeah.
expansions for it. It's still alive. Yeah.
I got told recently by my Xbox, my on PC, that they were like, "You got Fallout 76 stuff." Like, I do. Since when? Who told you? Why are you giving me this stuff?
Oh yeah.
It is. It's a very like a space I feel very alien from, increasingly alien from, I guess. So it's a very weird thing, but
I guess it's strange for me because I'm in that position where I'm actually very close to that space
yeah,
because of my day job. Because like not specifically because Unbeatable is/isn't an indie game, but because like a lot of the way we market games, a lot of the ways we like talk about how we release and approach those projects are starting to very match. Those things do come into question, and
no, Jeffrey. Let's break it down right now. Is Unbeatable indie or is it not indie? We need to break it down right now. Show me your accounting books. I need to look at it.
Unbeatable indie or not indie. I think by the definition of the metrics of most games, no, not really.
Like it
But
doesn't.
I mean, but
it's kind of
but,
arbitrary, really.
It's arbitrary. That's the thing. Like like if you consider indie games indie in the same way that like music, like the indie music is indie music, then
Right.
like Unbeatable is undoubtedly an indie game, sure. But like
Yeah.
if you consider by the very fixed economic decision for Unbeatable, I think that's a lot more dubious, and it depends on what you consider
Yeah.
those kind of games to be indie games, right? Because like
which
it's
children?
it's not something I can talk in
Right.
full detail about.
Which children of
just
famous actors are working on Unbeatable?
nobody.
Oh, then you're not indie. That's if you're gonna use indie music as an indication.
Is that really like an
It-
indication?
I
mean,
I think it's like an in joke, or like if don't ask an indie musician why their parents have blue Wikipedia names. You know?
oh right. Because like some people are like indie artists, but then you go to like you take a look at their profile and then like the son of like a Billboard top artist from like
Right.
1980 or some shit.
or like a super famous actor, or like
Somebody who lives in Hollywood. Is that what you're saying?
right. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a lot easier when you have
Mhm.
like, and that's not even like anyone's fault. You know, you realize that like truly organic, a person just came from nowhere to success is like like it's probably unbelievably rare. Like you can find connections everywhere, you know. But it's also like, hey, don't worry about that, you know. Yeah, don't worry about it.
I don't understand indie music, I think, as well as like the kind of indie game discourse. But I do feel like indie games are kind of slowly evolving into that dynamic in a very specific way.
Yeah,
It's becoming that dynamic where like the definition of it has completely changed. So yeah, at least the way I see about it, I've really stopped caring, and it just depends on what the
right.
game needs or want. Like again, with Skyrim stuff, it's a hobby thing for me. I think of it as like that's why I don't think of us as indie developers. I think of it as like kind of like in the same space as like Doujin developers, Doujin artists, right?
Yeah, we just
Because,
like English doesn't have that word for it besides like
I
hobbyist, but
mean,
hobbyist has a different connotation to it.
sure. So like in that sense, we're not exactly like making quote unquote strictly indie games, but we're also not um like the like we're creators. We're creators at the end of
Yeah.
the day. So we're making stuff, and the aim of it is to just like have the opportunity to keep doing these things with friends and try cool concepts out, explore cool ideas, right? Tell cool stories, like tell stories that matter to us, tell things that like share with people our thought process, our ideas, our art. But it's also a very different kind of thing depending on what you end up making and what you end up like a part of, because like it's not those concepts aren't in most games. They're probably in every single game. It's just like in terms of the like marketing and format it's obviously always very different, right? Like I can't claim, oh, like that game is being released with a publisher and they have like full funding and full marketing and it's releasing on every platform under the sun, but that makes them less of an like a creator. I don't think it does. It makes
No.
them extremely so, actually, because of the natures of that project, and like the kind of like it just has a very different head in the conflict about um about like the act of creating it, because and this is a thing that uh especially when you look at art like in like historically in the past, the reason why so much like art that like we see in museums and shit existed was because governments paid people asinine amounts of money to make that art for and do nothing in their lives but make that art, right? We don't have things like that today, so the way art is created is in a very different format, so to speak. So
Yeah, and there's always been like funding and production companies and like, I mean the traditional model was like publishers were just literally, or like in some cases, not all
well,
cases, publishers are
games
like
were done. Games
publishers.
are
They
usually
they
done.
they
Yeah.
publish things because you needed physical distribution models because you couldn't just get your like how would you get your movie or your album or whatever or your game out into the world without someone like a Warner or like to be like, okay, yeah, I'll put it in stores for you. Um, but with digital and anyone can like the distribution need for publishers shrinks a little because everyone can distribute things all the time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates a different kind of. And I wonder if that's part of. I mean, especially in like indie publishers, there's definitely like a skewing towards they are like positioning themselves as like faux developers in a sense, in the way they like curate a very specific aesthetic.
I don't think they're trying to mask themselves as something they're
No,
not.
but it
Yeah, for
doesn't
sure.
hurt when people refer to
It,
something as an Annapurna or a Devolver game.
that is true, but I mean, see, I don't really consider Annapurna or Devolver indie publishers. They publish indie games, but they have
Yeah.
decidedly the way the
Right.
way
Yes.
they
Yes. No.
the
Yeah.
way
No.
they
I.
market and behave are distinctly not indie. And especially with Annapurna because they're also an indie film publisher.
Yeah. No. That was. I
And I
was.
wouldn't even say I wouldn't even say indie film, right? They're just a film publisher. So
Yeah. I was meaning indie publishers and publisher of indies, not an independent publisher.
well, that's a funny dichotomy, right? So
Yeah.
they're
Right. Right.
independent, but they're also a publisher, right? So it's like, what makes that part of that side of things independent when they ultimately are dependent on other things to make, right? You know, so other people's projects, like other deals, stuff like that. There's like a lack of independence to that. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. I'm like, I just want to be, I want to be rid of it. I'm not thinking about it anymore. I want like, I got,
I engage with
yeah.
it if I got to. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
I think it happened recently because I got pinged by somebody on a list on X.com. So I presume that there was indie discourse happening, but brother, if I'm gonna look at it, not gonna be me.
I know what it is.
Yeah.
I know full well what happened.
But that's I'll take my free follows and be on my way.
I will not say anything about it.
Yeah,
'Cause it's
because
stupid.
yeah, it certainly is. It certainly is. I want to be in a space where in the whatever video game space I'm in is where everyone else in that space will never in their life ever think about the Game Awards.
Yeah, unfortunately, that couldn't be me, a person
Yeah.
who has to actively engage with that
Yes,
sort
it
of
has.
in a way. Yeah,
Well, you work in a space where Unbeatable could theoretically be on that stage.
it could theoretically be on there. Yeah, so that's obviously like a thing I have to deal with. I mean, and also, I mean, I'm not immune to the. I wouldn't say I'm not immune to the propaganda, but it's partially true. But like,
Yeah.
it's a stupid industry event. There's two ways the Game Awards could go. It could be a serious event that actually honors the creatives and the people that work on
Right.
games, or it can be a ridiculous marketing slideshow filled with games that people like, all the hype things people want and all the trailers, and like it's just kind of like people patting each other on their backs and stuff. And like the way I see it is you can't be both. You can
Yeah.
only be one or the other, and they have chosen what they want to be, and I don't think there isn't a place for that, ironically, but I don't like its current stance and its way of it's the vibe that they have not accepted that they aren't both.
No,
Like,
well, because
there's a kind of energy to it that's like, I mean, I think the Game Awards is akin to an E3 for me, and I
Right.
like that kind of thing because I like learning about new games. I like being excited about it with people and talking about silly game industry stuff with people. I'm like I like embrace that kind of trash a little bit, to be
Yeah.
honest. Um, but the thing is that it also wants to be something it is clearly unable to be because of what it is,
No,
and
it's
I
like
don't like that vibe that it is the thing that it because it kind of is that, you know, like the Game Awards actually does have a significant amount of sway in the industry. This is not um this is like actually clearly evident at certain events and stuff like that. And it's not the worst thing in the world that it's like that, but I wish that was not the event that would actually elevate certain people in terms of prestige and like in terms of like general treatment. So
yeah. I mean, it's a fun exercise I did recently was looking at the winners from last year and noted that not a only in the composers and the voice actors were human beings named as winners. You know, uh, otherwise it was all companies that won, and
I
that is
mean, I also see the issue with them putting names in because it's like with some of those projects have hundreds of designers,
right,
have
right, right.
hundreds of artists, and it's like, and then it's inevitably people are going to be excluded, and I think for them they just find the format easier if they just embody everyone under one name, but that obviously has its own issues, its own
Yeah,
connotations, you know, especially because like I think for example if let's take one of the nominees for this year as an example, which would probably be Resident Evil 4, right? Resident Evil 4 is a game that definitely had a lot of artwork outsourced to other companies, probably some company from like, you know, like some companies from like the other side of Asia, you know,
yeah,
and those names are not credited in that game, like, and some of them are, most of them aren't, right? When you credit the if you credit Resident Evil 4 for having great art direction, you're leaving names out if you only name either the top directors responsible for, or even if you name literally everyone that was in the credits in some art department of that project, because
yeah,
of the fact that names are continually left out in the industry. And like there's no really big win-win there. Obviously, I think that's the better outcome than just referring to them as Capcom because they are distinctly not Capcom. You know, it's like very specific names and industry veterans, people who have worked years and years in game art and are really good at this shit. Like, but yeah, it's a kind of weird thing with that kind of space. And also like they actually used to not credit game soundtrack and design by
yes,
like sound design by names. They didn't do this. They referred only by the company, they only referred by the game, and that was a hugely controversial aspect of that show that like they did actually change. So like, you know, honestly if enough pressure is put on them, they could try conceding here. And who's to say they haven't actually this year adjusted it to maybe mention specific names, because I think it's starting to become very clear that recognition of individual names is becoming like a very important thing that people want, right?
yeah, yeah. Because
And
there's like there's a lot of room in between for like, you know, you don't, you know, naming literally everybody, but also like, okay, well, if you name, if this game won best art, would it hurt you to name the art director or the art leads? You know, just kind of like work your way closer to like outside of a different just like a solo company. You know, there's
right,
like the idea that companies make games, not people, which is kind of the worst of it, but. Listen, I'm not gonna get mired down in the game awards. We could talk.
I'm not going to talk
Yeah,
about it too much because even though I'm going to probably get a watch party together for it,
yeah,
I'm going to be busy playing DDR while that's going on. So
yes,
I'm literally not going to be home at the game during the event. That's actually the first time ever I might have to like, because usually our I get together with friends and we usually watch it together and commiserate
in
in the misery of the Game Awards.
I
I
think
mean, as
in
fun as
true
that is,
Jeff fashion.
I think
I
that is
mean,
also the very
it's just how I am. But I'm actually going to be at a local convention that day, which is a tournament around rhythm games. So like, I won't be able to do that. Maybe like, there's a possibility I won't be able to do that. If I'm doing that with friends there, which is a very different dynamic from getting an online call to watch the game advertisements. So,
yeah.
you know,
I wonder if that is like it's the other thing I realized just now that I don't have any friends, as in like friends I would just go and hang out with, like I would say within games. Like all of
Mhm.
my whole friend group is like play games, but they're completely divorced from the space, which is like maybe also why like I can just go get a reprieve because none of my friends give a shit about uh, whether or not, I don't know, X game is indie or not indie, or what does indie games mean. It's like, who cares? They're like,
Yeah.
and it's nice to like I can compartmentalize it all, uh, get outside the cave, and be free from looking at the shadows forever.
Well, so that's the thing that's actually fun about how Crossora was
Yeah.
that this is the first Skyward Works project where I directly worked with somebody that I was local with.
Yes.
So with both me and Juniper, we would go to the cave, which is an actual place. I want to stress it's
Not a.
not like it wasn't an expression there. There is an arcade called the Cave. I go to this place literally every week. I also see Juniper there. I actually saw Juniper on Wednesday. We were there. I was there for only like a handful of hours,
It's a
but
great place.
it's an awesome place. It's got all the games we love playing, so we always go there all the time. And the scene, the rhythm game scene's always there, so it's just really chill.
Yeah.
But like we've actually worked on the game while we were at like the arcade, while we were at the nearby cafe. Like it's a very, I don't know, is that because I think we talked about this a bit, Juniper, but like we don't usually get the opportunity to have that dynamic of working directly next to each other, like just with other projects or people in general, right?
Yeah, and for me, like body doubling helps so much with just like being productive and having someone to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
So I do kind of like that, even though in a lot of ways I prefer coordinating remotely and everything.
I prefer coordinating remotely, but I do enjoy the moment to moment working with someone like in
Hmm.
person. Yeah, I think that's how I feel about it. Like, obviously, I don't want to be stuck in the office all day for something like that, but just like that is something I actually really loved about working on this game was actually just getting to meet up in the arcade and just like work on stuff. And then when I'm like, I need to think about this problem that I don't have, like I don't want to sit here for 10 minutes thinking about it. I'm just gonna go play like a game or something, and I come back and I just fix it, kind of feeling. It's just like a good space for things like that there. And yeah, it's cool. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I love working with people like that. And it's also a reason why I love getting together with my team with my day job because we don't get to do that all the time since we always work remotely. But the few times we work together in person, it's usually really productive, really fun.
Right.
Um
It's a
it
very
was,
different energy
it
when
was great.
you like can't go around it while you're talking and look on Wikipedia to see which Japanese studios develop games that you didn't realize they
I
developed.
mean, honestly, yeah. Like, I feel like I'm kind of on the hook to also get stuff done when I'm with someone in person. Even if I'm at the arcade, I don't want to like go dick off and play something.
Yeah.
Because like I have stuff to do, and if the other person's also working on stuff, it kind of feels awkward if I do that.
Right.
But
If you're just like not like he, when you could like, it's not like whether you get more or less work done is sometimes uh, not even like the case, but it's like, well, it's easier to get unfocused.
it's you stay focused when you
Yeah.
do it, yeah. But I mean, the real appeal is just really getting to bounce stuff off of people. Like the
Yeah.
focus means like kind of like a minor thing, but just getting to bounce off doing things with people, and like I don't know, it was a really special part of working on this game with me, and something that I really really want to do more of in the future, for sure. I noticed like a local indie scene with lots of stuff going on, so I mean that's always been fun, but um yeah, like
Yeah. It's always
I
fast.
it,
Like I just like
I think that the times where we got to work together in person on the project were probably some of the best parts of it, for sure.
Same here, and just like play testing together, kind of getting
Playtesting
feedback.
together
And
was fun, yeah, because like the honest difficulty of it is when you're like online and I'm trying to describe to someone like an issue I have of how something feels, like like Juniper's there when I play tested it, and I'm like, I don't like how this feels like, and I'm like replicating it right in front of her and like pressing the keys and like visibly showing her the keys that I'm pressing, right? Like stuff like that is a lot harder to convey online. Like you can, but it's just
right.
there's a lot of hoops to it, and I think like it's also the like kind of like emotion that you can see a person have when they play, because like um Like you can see like how like how I express my feedback. I think that's another key thing, and it's also similar with Juniper with like regarding the direction or like approach of certain things. And yeah, I don't know. It's a cool part about it. I worked on this game while I was in a truck. Like I was in the back of a truck, like fucking Pokemon Emerald style. Um, because I was going to a convention helping the arcade staff there. But like, there's a photo of that and stuff like that. It's just like that's probably the most, most the biggest thing I'll take away from in terms of this project, which is the I don't think analog is the right word for it, but how very offline a lot of the development felt for me, I guess, on our sides. It was pretty different for Izzy, Holly, and Ricky, who did work remotely exclusively. But for at least the two of us, it was a very, very not offline, not online process to make stuff in the game, which was very nice.
Yeah,
Stressful
there's
project.
like it can just like even if there are like you're generally remote, just having two people like seeing another person who makes the thing that you're working on just in the same space as you
Yeah,
can
it's
go just like a long way. There's I I have difficulties with like I cannot parse like likes like online interactions kind of like mean nothing to me. It's just difficult for me to like draw meaning from a little heart number that a little number next to a heart,
mhm.
But like a person like in space coming up and being like, I like this thing. I go, ah yes, that's worth 10,000 of those hearts because I I can see the other person liking it, or like disliking it as well. Like seeing the light leave their eyes as I explain what this my table is about.
Mhm.
It's still like, oh, it makes more sense to me than just the absence of interaction.
Yeah, that was maybe the coolest part of some of the local cons we went to, or just the one, was just
Just the
having people
one.
play test it and being a little surprised about how much people liked some of the mechanics I just added for whatever reason. I honestly was not expecting much feedback either way. But both,
I think the expectations we both had were people were not gonna play the game.
yes, but people played the game and they told us what they thought of it, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know what came over us on that period of no one's gonna play the game because it's like it's a small event. There's like maybe like 10 game like 12,
Yeah.
12
Okay.
games total.
My
But
theory was because it was next to Unbeatable. I was like, oh, everybody's just gonna play
I mean
Unbeatable.
that's fair. But I mean also I actually thought Unbeatable would help it because it's next to that game
It
and
probably
people
did.
would yeah, I think it definitely did. But what I was most worried about in terms of like, oh, people weren't going to touch this game is that like, there isn't a lot. There wasn't like a way people could easily see what the game was and get attracted by playing that. Which I guess is fair for a lot of the games there. But usually when you have a game at a con, you want to have like an attract mode that shows like video of gameplay so people can see how exciting the game is.
yeah.
It's like that kind of energy. But yeah.
But ideally, like I mean, I guess the ideal version of like people are going to cons to play games, so ideally they'll just play everything. Hopefully.
For the most part, they will. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not everybody, and like that's because like I've demoed games at cons before, so it's like
Yeah.
not a super unfamiliar experience. But usually, what keeps people going is like they have time to check out a handful of games, and they're going to pick the games that interest them the most based off of their taste and based off of what they like. It's always a visuals thing, and I think that's actually a thing I was worried about with how Crowdsource because while the intro is really cool, right? Like I think people seeing gameplay would have immediately attracted them just a smidge more.
Yeah.
Like when you go to an arcade and play a game, right? You see like the attract modes, you see the games kind of playing themselves, right? You kind of get the vibe of what it's like. You can't really gauge that very well with Power Cross Sword, and we didn't bring anything much else to help with that exactly. So like, it was a pretty scuffed setup, honestly. But yeah. Like I'm really glad that event went as well as it did, though. I mean, if anything, though, it was mostly just a fun way to connect with friends and do things. Like when I go to cons, I'm never worried about, oh, are people gonna purchase the game? Are people going to play it? You know, what are people gonna think about it? Because like I think you think too hard on the game, and it really
Yeah.
devalues the point of these experiences. Because if I care about that so much, I will just put my game in like a next fest. I will put my game in like online showcase or whatever the fuck is going on, right? Like, I go to that event because I want to have a fucking ice cream, like like beer float or whatever or some
Yeah,
shit. Like
that's
after we're all is said and done, I go to that event because because I want two teams from very different sides of like what I work on somehow in the same space together, right? And I think that was probably one of the cooler parts of the event because like we had both me and my director from D-Cell Andrew like in the same space as like a lot of like Sky Works developers, and that's usually pretty uncommon because we don't tend to meet up very often. And it's also in the same space as the DMV scenes like Swamp Goblin, right? So there's a lot of like other indie developers around us that we don't really get to know and stuff like that. And just talking with those people. And it's like and also like GMU students because it's like a game design program there. So it's just a really nice coalescing of people. That's what I mean when like I think Skywars is kind of like a Division Circle, like circling back to that point again for like the fourth time
yeah.
because like the best parts of that experience was when that event felt less like a oh like we got to showcase our game and more like we have our game here, we have other people's games here, let's engage this like you know we are fans of their work and they engage with our stuff like they're fans of our work, right, kind of deal. um that's the kind of energy that that event had. Although it was definitely more casual, and I think it had a lot of people who, you know, obviously just people who enjoy consuming stuff and not necessarily create things. But that's also the thing that happens at events like Comic Get and like a
Yeah.
lot of other like dungeon focused stuff. You know, you have an audience that is fans of the culture, fans of the scene, right? Or people who just like checking out shit, but they don't necessarily like make stuff either and have stuff to kind of contribute, which I think is totally fine because those people are like really cool. You know, those people like seeing. I think there's like an 8-year old that played Hellcross Sword like at that event there, which was really cool. Like there's like a lot of young people who were playing the game there, and I really like that a lot. Stuff like that is cool. It's cool seeing people engage with the game. It's also cool getting to sit down and talk with people who are making the stuff and exchanging ideas and exchanging shit. It was just a good time. I really like being there. And I know there's more events like it that we definitely can do in the future. But right now, there's nothing like that happening. I mean, I could have demoed games at Eclipse East, but I wanted to go there just for fun. And again, like when I go out to local events and stuff, like I actually gauge a lot about how is it worth bringing the stuff I work on there because like sometimes it's not because it kind of gets in the way of me actually being able to just socially engage with people.
Oh,
And that's
yes,
not
no.
a bad yeah.
I've never enjoyed attending an event in my life.
But that's my this is my pitch to suggest some time to go to MagFest because the best
Yeah.
part about MagFest is that it's the hours after people are like because there's like core hours, so you have to have your game there for a set amount of hours. After that hours is done though, that's when people just kind of go off and drink and hang out, or like if they don't like drinking, they go to the arcade, they go like have pizza with friends, you know, there's concerts. There's a lot of things that you can enjoy even after the event hours are
Well, I
quote
got
unquote
bad news.
over.
They won't let me into MagFest. I'm not applicable
Because you're a publisher, not a creator,
because I'm
right?
technically a publisher, I guess.
Who says you need to be in MagFest as a part of the indie showcase? Like actually serious question because the thing is the indie showcase is awesome, but it's a very specific kind of setup and a very specific kind of thing that they're doing it
Yeah.
for. Which so why not go to like the marketplace? Why not be a marketplace?
That's what I was gonna do, but the marketplace. When I was looking at the indie thing, the marketplace was already like done. It's one of those I didn't realize.
Yeah, marketplace is super early. You have to keep an eye on it when it happens.
Yes.
But like actually, like MagFest has stuff like that. Like there's people who sell zines and there's people who sell stuff like that in the marketplace, and it's in the same space as people who like resell games or
Yeah.
sell like official merchandise. Like it's like there's no distinguishing between the two. You are in the same environment. It's not like a con because like most cons have like a artist alley, so that's the people who make fan works or make their own original like indie stuff, like their own original themes, you know, the small people, right? And then there's the companies, that's the marketplace, right? But
Yeah,
MacFest
usually.
just has the marketplace, and everyone is in it, including those artist alley people, and a lot of people I know who have traditionally bring art and vendor stuff love working at MacFest because of the fact that there is no distinguishing and there's a lot of people going through their booth and expressing interest because I go to a con like I went to Anime USA for during How Crossover's development. That was
Yeah.
the con I was helping the arcade staff with. Um, and like you can completely miss the artist alley if you want to. It's totally optional. You can just skip it. The first area you cross through first is the marketplace, right? But the artist alley, I could just turn around and be like, nah, I don't give a fuck. Obviously people don't do that because artist alleys are very integral parts of those kind of cons. But like when you have it all in one space, you can't avoid it. You will see all of it, and I think that's actually a really good spot for something like, say, like a zine group or something like that. So
Yeah,
like, because I understand that indie showcases rules and they're very explicit and very clear. I think that's like there's no other way around that. Like it makes a lot of sense with why, because they want their vibe is they want people there who are the developers. So like when people go up and ask questions about the game and want to talk about the game, the people who are there are the people who make it. So I think you're gonna have a hard sell unless all 10 of like people from a set issue, right, come in, get all of their games individually approved, and then you can kind of like see like that it's not exactly what they're looking for. They
right.
want that kind of they want people to engage with indie developers. I think is like the big pivotal thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, I mean, it's like a full calendar year away, so I'm not worried about it anytime soon. But
I'm worried about it because it is not a calendar year soon
yeah,
for me. I'm going to that event, so
right,
yeah.
right.
But yeah, it's a
No,
great time.
I usually just most indie showcases don't have the rule, and the thing is they're cheaper than marketplaces usually and easier to get into, which is why I go to those.
Marketplaces, I think MacFests doesn't cost money if I recall correctly.
They're usually like MagFest might be different, but my experience is usually extremely like you're hammering on a refresh screen, to get in.
I mean, you're doing that for MagFest, but that's also because it's free.
Right, right. And
Usually,
you're
for most of these events, you have to pay money,
yes, yes,
and not
or
everyone pays money, so obviously spaces are still filled up.
right,
So
or they're like legacy spaces and like it varies wildly based on each event. Of course, like I've seen them in different events I think honestly this is the first year that I actually like flipped through and I think I just had missed the publishing thing. I was like, whoops, oops. And that is like because I people do like MagFest and it is like not. I'm also on the East Coast, so it's not too far from me. But 2025
perhaps MacFest is cool. I love that
Yes.
event, and I one particular dream I have is someday we'll have a full Sky Hour Works like set up there,
Yeah.
like get like a project there, and then we have the whole team in person for the first time. Like that would be a lot of fun. I wanted to do that with some of the projects, but we haven't got around to it. Like Read the Sea Voice is a game I wanted to showcase to MacFest at some point, but who knows? We'll think of there's a possibility something like that will happen
Right.
someday. Yeah,
Well, hopefully it will.
hopefully it will.
Hopefully it will. But speaking of things that hopefully will be, we're approaching about an hour and a half, which is I try to keep these shows reasonable length.
Mhm.
Also, I haven't eaten yet today, so I'm hungry. So we're gonna start to wrap this show up. Like
Right.
it flies by if you wouldn't believe it. uh, but I got the two important questions that I ask every. Why is it pre-roll Azure disabled for 11 minutes? Thank you. I don't know what that means. But quick question for the cast. These two standby. Well, let me check to see if I have. I do
Like
not.
if any.
I do
Okay.
not have any submitted, but that is also the thing that happens literally every week. That is
Okay.
merely the nature of the show. So first up, what is your favorite type of rock?
A Marvel.
Favorite-
I'm kidding. I like Marvels a lot. They're rocks, right? No, I assume that's not the kind of rock you're talking
No,
about.
it's open to interpretation.
Oh shit! I don't want that to be my actual answer. Oh, my actual answer is Chinese ballad rock.
Okay.
Mine is post rock.
Mine is Obsidian.
I will say amethyst as well because I like physical things, and also I just like that it's like really easy to find and super cheap, but
Perfect.
still really pretty.
And do you have a favorite Toho character? Speaking of Doji, or that's not a circle
Dojin
necessarily,
stuff.
but
Yes, I have a favorite Toho character.
okay.
You can start. You can start.
Oh no, I'm just answering the question.
Oh no,
I think the question
no,
was
no,
which
sorry,
Toho
you're
character
right.
was your
You
favorite?
caught me. That was the trap. The answer is what is your favorite Toho character?
Okay,
Depends.
mine is Marisa.
Okay, featured of the star of the latest commissioned Indiepocalypse game.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
you
I
guys,
need to
you guys,
Oh.
you have a
It's like a cool
Marisa
like
game.
it's like a cool like cylinder bullet hell.
Ooh.
That sounds
Oh.
interesting.
Like it's like you're wrapped around a cylinder basically.
My fave is Cherno. I think Cherno's funny.
I was gonna say the same thing.
I think Ramu.
Oh,
That's
perfect.
also kind of a boring answer.
That's a full cast of answered. I feel like we've been on a dry spell here with Toho lately, where a lot of people
Well,
are
because
like,
people don't know, or people just say like one character. Like,
no, they don't
Ramu.
know.
They don't know. Okay.
They're like, I don't know what Toho is. And I'm like,
That's so sad.
well, let me tell you about Zoom.
Cerno is also a favorite of mine, but I usually go with Ramu. Yeah.
I have, not in this room, it's somewhere else, but I got a giant mug of beer, one of those giant beer mugs that you often see Zune holding in a picture. So I too.
Oh.
My 2024 style is like, what if I just chilled out and it was like no longer thought about things anymore and just released the thing that I like and had a giant beer.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
That's Zincore.
Yeah, I'm going from 2024 is the year of ZuneCore for me. After my laid back year, I'm thinking of just like, man, this thing kicks ass. Who cares about the amount of money it does or does not make? I like it.
Yeah.
There's like 100 of those, like somewhere between. I don't know how many. Close to 100 of those little cassettes floating around the world now. That's a lot, relatively speaking. I think for a year.
That is.
I also highly recommend. They're cool game release solutions. Super cheap to produce, and people think they're cool at events. I highly recommend indie devs such as yourself. Put little USB sticks inside of cassette cases. I think having like a standard solution for indie. Even you there in the chat. I highly recommend. You should do that.
I'll get you those addresses so we can do the thing.
Oh yeah, and I
Right.
can. Yeah, I will definitely send you zines and cassettes. I'll send cassettes any day. Those things are so cheap to produce.
Are they really?
Yeah,
I don't think they would be. That's cool though.
yeah. No, they're cool because a full color whatchamacallit, like a full color 24-page 8.5 by 11 booklet is very expensive, but USB sticks and little cassette cases are like $30 for 50 of them, and USB sticks are about 50 for 50 or 50ish for 50 depending on how big you need them. And I need them big, but because I got to put 10 games on them. And like the little inserts, you can make 4 per sheet, and those are like 20 cents. So like generally I'm saying a lot because I really like this and I encourage people to do it, so I don't mind getting into the minutia of it. Basically they're like a couple bucks per game to produce physically, and chances are you're selling a game for more than $2. And also you're not splitting it 11 different ways like I am. I mean, maybe in your case, maybe you are in some cases splitting 11 different ways. But yes, you could do that easy. Yes, if you want to, if I remember the person behind this username, if you want to just ask me about the logistics of this privately, feel free to message me at any time. I'm glad to talk about this.
Of course.
Yes, if Hyphenet is who I think Hyphenet is, which is why I address friends of the show within the chat. Yeah, shoot me a DM. I'll let you know. I'll even something I was thinking about is like if people don't want to worry about the logistics and just give me a cover, I thought about just like doing ad hoc style. I don't think ad hoc's the right word, but if people be like, I make indie games, Andrew, publish my game physically, I would go, yes, sure thing. Just give me a percentage. Yes. Okay. Yes, you are. Yes, it's broken in the chat. Yes. Phew. I wanted to make sure. Listen, people have names and they have online names, sometimes multiple online names. Sometimes they change their names, and I have to keep track of 400 of them. Sometimes I don't keep track of them all. But yes, if you're an indie dev out there also who's like, yes, Hyphenet for all purposes online. If you are like, I want to do that, just let me know. Also, if you work at or run a game shop and you're like, oh, it'd be cool if I sold these indie games on cassette in little cassette cases in my shop, reach out to me. I will get you a sweetheart deal on those things, like that vendor prices. But yes, that's just me saying things out loud so I remember to do them. You know, not really related to the show.
Yep.
That is more me thinking. You know, be that cross that barrier for people and be like, yeah, let's start this, because I think 2024 also is me. What if I just slowly morph things into like American Comic Cats and like or like small press expo indie comic shows, but games, and kind of Indiepocalypse started as like, oh, there's no publishing space sort of for like small weirdo stuff that's like 10 minutes long. What if I made it? And now I'm like, well, I'm increasingly doing, well, if no one's going to write about it, I'll write about it. Well, now I'm like, well, if there's no industry that is looking to receive this, what if I just make my own game industry? You can't stop me. I'll just make my own goddamn game industry.
Do it, I dare you.
I will. Then Indiepocalypse will have a space in the game industry if I built it myself.
Yeah, I mean, if the game industry has its own fame, then just do your own thing. Doesn't matter.
Yes. I've been hitting this square peg in this round hole for a very long time, and I really don't think it's going to fit in. It's getting. I think if I do it hard enough, maybe, but I just don't think. I think it's maybe time to start looking for that square hole, you know, or making a square hole myself, or waiting 10 years for the culture to change. The culture to age out, because let me tell you something, the kids are into this shit, you know. The couple hours I spent doing that IGDA show to college sold better than so far this issue has. This most recent release with my theoretical thousands of followers has sold. Well, I guess not if you count Patreon, but who knows. Anyway, this is me trying to end the show. Hello. We're trying to end the show now. Does anyone have any late breaking, urgent thing they needed to say before we leave? Besides plugs, we'll get the plugs obviously.
Play Gustia. The game's good. That's all.
Yeah, player game.
Player game. Wait, that's not good. That's not Gustia. Player game though.
Yes.
It's on Indiepocalypse issue 45. There is no other way to get it. Yes. So just play it for Indiepocalypse.
Yes, play it there. Then you get 9 other games in there too. I was playing it
There's
this
9
morning
other games
too. Just to give myself a refresh to make sure I knew everything in case I had to, if I was put on the spot. I was like,
okay. And you know what? If you forgot, you can go and play it again.
Yes, exactly.
It is the endless runner.
Yes, it is one of the secrets of commission games is one of the secret bonuses of the commission games is by commissioning them, it means I don't have to judge them, which means I technically don't have to play them. So I'm like, when I'm really busy, I'm like, oh, thank God, it's one of the games I don't have to play. It was a weird thing where there were some games like I played through their entirety for the first time at like events while I was in in downtime. I was like, oh, finally, time to really sit down and play these games.
So I just want to
So
say
what-
Izzy did an amazing job with the level generation
Yes.
to make it
Thank you.
an infinite runner. It's very cool and not something I've done before. So
I was very proud of the system I wrote for that. It was one of those things where like I thought what I like the very first way I thought to approach it worked and worked pretty well. So,
yep, it just once you implemented it, it was good.
yeah.
Didn't need to touch it.
Yeah,
Really.
there and this isn't even like this is like look. I like looking at these pages. I'm like, damn, dude, video games are cool. These things are cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff.
I mean, I'll say openly, just
Yeah.
like closing off on how I feel everything is I really am glad I got to make this game with everybody, and I am glad that everyone enjoyed working on it, and I hope we get to make more cool stuff together. I hope this is not the last thing we do. It definitely isn't if some things are to be believed.
Yeah.
But I would love to continue working on cool stuff with people. So yeah.
I think there needs to be like so much more space for this kind of like small, extremely like small press publishing sort of stuff, you know, that lets people like actually like, oh, we don't need to commit. We can commit like a few months to working on something. We don't. Have to
Yeah,
spend...
it's just there just needs to be like the fact it's not just like a publishing kind of side of
Yeah.
thing too, but just like more people need to be braver and just having fun making stuff and
Right.
not worry about will it make money? Is this like a job opportunity? Like fuck that. I make games
Exactly.
because making games is fucking cool. And like and like honestly half the reason I make Skywars games is that they're just an excuse to collaborate with other friends of mine who are also artists. Like they don't necessarily have to be game creators, but just I want to work with friends who also create stuff too. I want to have something in common with them in a sense, and like that's kind of my outlet. So you know, like of course I'm going to feel pretty differently about that from people who are like, oh, I'm just not too sure if it's like a good idea to commit time into it, because obviously
Yeah.
people want to be rewarded for their time, so to speak. But it's just, I mean, I have to do this as a job too. The easiest way to enjoy it outside of that is to enjoy it as a way of expressing myself with friends.
Absolutely.
I'm
It's like-
glad I got to make this game with all of you, and this is a 2-month late. Congratulations to everybody for putting this together, and hopefully we will do more cool things with it.
Yeah, what Jeff said.
Yes, that.
yes. No, you can just make stuff because you like to make stuff, and if you're worried
That's
about
true.
being successful, hey, what I've been saying is, it'll pay off 10 years from now.
They
When
might
you're
not,
just-
but I don't think anyone cares.
Just
you know?
make it for the sake of making
it doesn't.
it.
It doesn't really matter too much. Like that's the secret of it is like, you know, I've been doing this for like, for like 3 full years, and I'll tell you something. It doesn't make any money.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it makes negative money. My break from my post that I'm going to do next week for my break even goal. My current break even goal for 2024's Pledge Drive, $58,242.67.
For me, I guess like the way I see it is
Yeah.
when you're making games, right? Like I'm here for the friends, you know. If it
Yeah.
at the end of the day, everyone had fun working on it, and we got to make something cool. And also, I get to exploit a lot of the ideas I had in high school. It's a win for me. I mean, a lot of these Skyward Worst games are just games. I'm like, when I was younger, I really want to make this game, and I'm going to rope in everybody I know to help make this with me. And then because I work on it with other people, they don't become the things I imagined them being in my head. They become something so much better. So yeah, really thankful we got the opportunity to do this. And thanks for having us for the 45th issue and everything. So yeah.
I'm glad to
Yeah,
have
it
you.
was a lot of
Sorry,
fun.
it was such a not safe for work cover.
That
We
was
made the
very
most.
funny.
That would
Funny.
be, I think we found it. We found that out the day before, so it's just like, oh my god, we just kind of made the most E-rated game, and not literally because of like we wanted everyone to play, but just because like I deliberately toned down the dialogue.
Yeah, right.
I thought the vibe wasn't right. Like it just didn't feel right for characters to swear in what is otherwise a very poppy, like upbeat game, and then it just so happens to be releasing in a format that's extremely the exact opposite of that.
Yes,
So
it just. Because the artist asked me, they're like, "Do you mind a little nudity?" I'm like, "No, not really," because like it's Indiepocalypse is ostensibly like for adults, you know, not like
Mhm.
not like in the same like R-rated, M-rated style, but like it's primarily for a mature audience. Uh, but and then they're like, "Oh, they kind of went all out," but also I think it kicks ass.
The
though,
art's
so-
sick though.
Yeah.
I'm not
Art's
gonna
really
lie.
Yeah.
the arts
It's
are like
really
Yeah.
cool.
Art goes hard, no pun intended.
No, it goes extremely. But that is the point of this. It's like much in the same way that like I would never give feedback into what how Exora the Skies Abound is supposed to be. Like it's just a space for people to just make what they want to make. You know. And
Yeah, exactly.
I think so much stuff comes out of better. So much. I love stuff that's like something that somebody clearly wanted to make, not what they think that somebody else wanted them to make. You know.
Me with the soundtrack.
Right. Yeah, just like go out there and live your best art life, you know. But now, speaking of how living your best life, I'm living my best life, and every podcast listener is living their best life. When they get to the part where people plug their stuff, they go wild.
Yeah.
They're hooting and hollering now. The people are like running up and down their halls, like going nuts because they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they got to the plug section. Where can I find these people?" So, people, where can they find you?
Jeff, you go first.
Okay, of course I gotta go first. You can find me on various places online. My Twitter's at comet_melting. You can check out all the works we've done, Sky Hour Works. There's a Patreon, skyhour.works. That's the link. We also have a developers page on Steam where you can play our other releases because How Crossover is not on there, which includes the Hajimeli developed Vivid Stasis. That includes A Nightmare's Trip and Space Mag Pilot. You can also check out my day job, which is Diesel, at Diesel Games, unbeatablegame.com. That is the game I do.
Oops, I put that in the
on
wrong
for a
spot.
living. Yeah. And yeah, do not perceive me. Play Ghost Pia.
Oh, I played the demo, some of the demo of Ghost Pia on a recommendation.
That game is awesome.
of
It's
another-
basically a Charlie Brown Christmas if it was also extremely violent. That's
Yes.
how I put it. It's so good.
crazy.
It's so good. Anyways, yeah, that's my
I
plug.
need to download it for my Nintendo Switch because it seems like a perfect little thing to knock
It's on
out.
sale on Steam. That's right.
Knock out for an hour before I go to bed.
Yep. Anyways, I'll
Yes.
throw it over to Jennifer.
Okay, you can basically find me everywhere as Juniper_dusk, and that's on itch and Twitter. I do art, I do music, but I don't post it anywhere. And you'll probably see me do some game jams and stuff. So
Yeah. You're not allowed to talk about your day job yet, right? I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I think I can.
Yeah.
You know what? Screw it. I recently hired as a assistant game producer for Archaea. So
Nice.
yes, very excited about that opportunity, and you'll probably see more of me there.
Oh god, it's my turn.
Yes.
I'm plugging my Bandcamp. I missed Bandcamp Friday by a day, so I don't get 100% of the proceeds. But you can
Someone could be
find
listening
it
to
at-
this on a different Bandcamp Friday.
Oh, true. On rukyyyy.bandcamp.com. That is all of the video game music, where you can find the recent How Cross Sora soundtrack, which honestly I think is some of my best work yet. You can also find me on Twitter at Ruki_Chan, where I post about being a deer all the time. Oh, and I also have a Twitch, twitch.tv/RUKYYY_.
I was like, usually I have everyone's stuff handy because I have it in my little questions page, but I just put me being lazy. I just put Skyhour Works. I was like, that means I did have everyone's links.
Oh no.
but I've collected them. Anyway, continue.
You can find my game work at zazo.itch.io. It's Zazo. Zaz was taken. And that's mostly game jam stuff. Or you can follow my very occasional devlog type postings on Zaz Says Stuff on Twitter.
Perfect. That's I linked all those Twitters because those were the handiest. But if you follow Twitter, you can get to everywhere else. People links.
You probably
pretty much
could. Just maybe. Yeah.
follow the spider web of links. Oh, look at all these links in the chat. I was not looking at that chat. Let me get those in there. I was looking at something. I went to the Twitter page. Or sorry X. Oh, sorry X. Apologies X.
I just call it Twitter. I'm sorry.
It
I
is.
don't.
No.
It's just Twitter.
It'll be Twitter. It'll be Twitter till. You know what? They made one good change, and that they changed retweet to repost. That's it. No other good changes. Nothing else good there,
I
except for
liked
that.
circles when we had those. But
When will
those are
Twitter
gone.
allow me to
I
post
missed the
audio
moments.
clips?
Never. Make sure you sign up for Twitter Blue first, or maybe you'll have to sign up for Twitter Gold, which may be different than Twitter. Anyway, speaking of Twitter, if you just kind of look online at places, and type in the word pizza pranks, if I'm there, you'll find me. I post about once a month to say a new Indiepocalypse comes out, and then I post a week afterward that says, "Hey, did you see that new Indiepocalypse came out?" And then I'm usually not online at all. But
Yep.
I just thumbed up my screen as if people can see that. People in the chat can see that. But yes, that is where you can find me if you need to find me in places where you need to find Indiepocalypse. But really, I've got good enough SEO. If you just look for Indiepocalypse, you go to indiepocalypse.com, you'll find your way to the latest editions of Indiepocalypse. We got a new one just came out just yesterday. There was that commission game of that aforementioned Toho game by Lily Valine. I forget the name. It's Lunar Bonfire. Trying to make me remember 400 games. I can't do it. Lonely Lovely Bonfire is the name of the game. There's 9 other games in there as well. They're all good games. They're all great. Listen, there's never a game. I mean, maybe you don't like all the games, but I like all the games in Indiepocalypse. But that's the joy of anthologies, you know? I have a very wide and varied taste. I'm a very curious art participator. But if you're everywhere, you're just like, hey, try an issue. Be like, oh, look at this. Maybe there'll be a thing you bounce off of. Maybe they'll be like, oh, wow, this is my new favorite developer. I can't believe I never heard of them before. How can I get into this and play all their games? It's the goal of the anthology. If you want to be part of the anthology, just go to indiepocalypse.com/submit. There's a Patreon available, as always. If you go to indiepocalypse.com/Patreon, you can get physical versions either within the USB sticks, the zines themselves, or for only $5, you can sign up and get just those commissioned games, which means, hey, look, $5, or I think it's $50 for a year, US, of course. I don't know what it is, and figure it out in your own currency. I don't have time to explain to do 13 currency exchanges. But that's like $50 for 12 brand new games from some of like the coolest people working in game dev in this kind of like alternative indie hub, whatever we call the doujin space in the West, which is 8 different things.
We create fucking video games. I think it's pretty simple. Yeah.
People who make cool video games. If you want 12 cool video games for less than the cost of one AAA video game, you can do that at indiepocalypse.com/Patreon. That's it. That's all of the things I have to say about Indiepocalypse. I think it's cool. I think the people here, thank you for joining me, because I think you're cool. You're cool people making cool games, and I like cool people making cool games. I wanna, I don't know, make it a cool space for that.
Yeah, of course.
I wanna.
I'm happy to be here again because it's my
Yes.
second time.
Yes, welcome back. Happy to have you here. the first edition spawned this because I was like, after I was like, hey, you want to make a game? And you're like, sounds cool to me.
Yeah.
The secret.
I'm glad.
The
I'm
secret
glad. I'm
process.
glad the game worked out. The
Yes,
game worked
I am
out.
too.
Everyone-
It was a very good time working on it. Very proud of what we did.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's a cool game. I highly recommend people check it out. And if there's a future release, we'll keep an eye out for a solo release. Things are not chained to Indiepocalypse forever.
Yeah. Whenever we have the ability, energy, and ability to so, we have a lot of ideas for the eventual Steam release of the game. So
Yes.
it will happen.
But for now, hey, head over to there. When you buy Indiepocalypse 45, these nice people, every 4 or 5 purchases turns into $5 through PayPal sent to them.
Yay!
Which is, it's cool. I like it. I like if someone sent me $5 through PayPal every 6 months.
It's like $1 for each of us since we split it equally.
Yes,
So.
you can all go down to the shop, get yourself a candy bar. Well, like
Hell
a
yeah.
small
Candy
one.
bars are too expensive nowadays.
Right,
That
right.
might barely cover our credit for DDR. So there's that. Yeah.
Work together, get one candy bar amongst the 5 of you.
I can gamble with that money.
Yes.
That's my plan too.
That amounts to one pull in your favorite gacha if you spend $20 for 20 pulls, which is the only available options.
You could do a single pull for maybe
Yeah.
2.
Yes, you could purchase a not a Powerball ticket. Those are $2. You could purchase a Mega Millions ticket. You can tell I used to work in retail. I was like, I know the cost of all the different games, all the different lottery games. Anyway, that's the show before we accidentally start to go into the secret 2.5 hour because we just keep talking. Jeffrey, Rookie, Izzy, Juniper, thank you all so much for being here on the show. Glad to have
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Maybe
Likewise.
one day I will be in that southern East Coast MagFest or #con.
#con will probably be in like 4 or 5 months. So
Oh, maybe,
I mean, yeah.
maybe not. Yeah, I'll think about it.
They do it twice a year. So
yeah, I did go to CanZine in Toronto, which was like a small one-day event. So,
yeah.
but like, anyway. Yes, the 5 in the chat. More. What's the word I'm looking for? What's the thing when people say are agreeing? What's the when people say the thing that they like? Like, what do you call those things that are on usually the back of book cover, like quotes?
Synopsis?
No.
No.
When people says, I like this book.
Accolades, I guess.
Yes, more accolades for the Indie $5 promise from Hyphenet in the chat, yes. Which turns into less money if you're outside the U.S.
We're splitting it amongst other people.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
especially if you're splitting. That's what happens when you split money 11 ways. But what if we bought... if people bought Indiepocalypse at the rate they bought other games, we wouldn't be rolling in money, but we'd have something.
Yeah.
That aforementioned pledge drive amount, that assumes that because a lot of those kind of sales, so that's like a theoretical. If we reach that pledge drive goal, that'd be like a $47K split out to developers, which, when you're splitting it 400 ways, it's still not a lot of money, but it's not
Still
zero.
be pretty good.
It's not zero. Anyway, goodbye.
See ya.
See you around.
Deuces.